eliminate type 1 error? Could I make my significance level 0.000001?
Yeah.
I could, couldn't I? And now I have all but eliminated type 1 error. If I make my alpha ridiculously small, I can't, for all practical purposes, I won't be making a type 1 error. That seems good, because we don't want to send guilty people away. Excuse me, we don't want to send innocent people away. Okay? So why not do that? Right? Can you see that you increase type 2 error now? Because if I make it extremely unlikely that making a type 1 error, I'm making it really, really hard to reject the null hypothesis. I'm going to fail to reject it almost all the time. If I increase that chance of failing to reject, I'm increasing the chance of a what? Type 2 error. And we call the probability of a type 2 error beta. And the part of this that I'm not going to do today, that we're going to return to maybe next week, is calculating beta. Okay, right now I'm just giving you what it means. Okay? What's power? Do I need a third notation for power? Somebody see it? Measuring power in terms of one of these. Power is rejecting a false null hypothesis. What's the complement of that? Accepting isn't a good word.
Failing to reject.
Failing to reject a what?
False.
A false null. Isn't that right? What's failing to reject a false null hypothesis?
Type 2.
Beta. So power is 1 minus beta. This is the point. We want the power to be high. That's the point of doing a hypothesis test. The problem is, the lower the significance level, the what? Higher beta, and therefore lower alpha. Yes? Let me show you something. Without doing the calculations, I'm just going to show you this visually. We are going to return to these and do this math. Can you pass those up? Oh. This thing is done. I can't show this. Put this thing down. Down. Alright, can't do that. Kevin's gonna pass this out.
Turning it back on.
So like one
Oh.
without math at all. Okay. So suppose we're like, we're worried that like water is too hot. Like there's a factory, whatever, it's putting water into the ecosystem and worrying that it's too hot. So we go out and we take samples of the water, right, to see the temperature of the water. Are you with me so far? Okay. So what's the null hypothesis here? No math. What's the null hypothesis here? The water is okay. Is that right? Or is it that the water is too hot? What's the null hypothesis? That the water is okay. Okay? And what's the alternative? The water is too hot. No. Right? Our null hypothesis is that there is no change. That's why we call it null. If we reject the null, what are we going to do? What are we concluding if we reject the null? I'm skipping all math here. We're going to conclude that what? The water is too hot, and what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Like, you work for the EPA. Well, if the EPA still exists. What are you going to do? What?
Find them.
Okay, find them, shut them down, make them fix their factory in some way. Does that have implications? No?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. And that could be bad. Maybe the factory goes out of business, right? Correct? Or maybe they spend so much money they can't expand their business and so they can't hire people. People don't get jobs. People lose jobs. Really bad. And if the water was okay, we just made a terrible error, did we not? What kind of error is that? We said the water was too hot, but in fact it was okay. That's a type 1 error, isn't it? Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So a type 1 error is saying the water is too hot when it's not. What's a type 2?
The water is too hot.
Saying what?
The water is too hot, but you reject it.
So type 2 is failing to reject, right? So if we fail to reject, what are we saying?
Water is
Right, that there's no evidence that it's too hot. Okay? And so what do we do now? What do we do now?
nothing.
What? He says nothing, right? The water's okay, we don't do anything. But if the water's actually too hot, we just made a mistake, didn't we? And what are the implications of that mistake?
Burning people.
What?
Burning.
Say it louder, I'm sorry to hear you.
The hot water will burn people.
The hot water will burn people? What are the implications? What? Right, it's going to destroy the hurt the ecosystem, right? The fish are going to die or whatever. Yes? Okay. No evidence that H2O is hot when it is. Now be a fish. Be a fish. Fausto, be a fish. Be a fish. Everybody be a fish. That's a good fisher. Alright. So, Mahana, if you're a fish, which do you care about? Type 2 error, right? If you're a fish, you care about type 2 error. And so if I asked you, well, do you want to do this test here or here? What do you choose? If you're a fish, so you don't care at all about this if you're a fish, do you? Right? If you're a fish, or if you're some environmental wacko, right? who says, okay, all that matters is the environment. Anything else is irrelevant. All that matters is the world we live in. It seems to me you only care about type 2 error. So which do you want to do? Which of these is going to minimize a type 2 error? So this 0.00001 is going to make it really hard to do what? Which one? Type 1. We're going to be not able to reject very often. There's almost no chance of rejecting. But by lowering this, you are what? You are raising this. And if type 2 error is what you care about, this does not seem like a wise decision. But what if you own the factory and you are short-sighted, and all you care about is your profits right now? What should you be choosing then? Right? You should be choosing this, correct? Because now there is hold on. I just screwed this up myself. Let's back up. Let's back up. Okay? If what we want to make sure of is that we do not make a type 1 error, which one should we be minimizing?
Alpha.
Right? We should be minimizing alpha. In this particular case, if I'm concerned about a type 1 error, if I'm a factory owner, here I am. But if I'm a fish, I'd have to be a pretty smart fish to understand this. But if I was a fish, I'm right here. Correct? So we do a test. P-value comes out to 0.03. Artemis, you're a factory owner. What's your position? As to what 0.03 means.
There's a percent chance that the water is, and given that the water is okay, there's 3% chance we get through this year.
Okay. So now that's not an opinion, right? That part is a fact. But you're a factory owner. What do you think about the 0.03?
So we're using alpha.
No. Tell me what you think about that 0.03. Is it low or not?
It's not really low.
No, in fact, it's really pretty high, isn't it? It could happen all the time, right? There's no reason to do anything, is there?
No.
Right? Because if the water's okay, we would see results like this all the time. 0.03 isn't low at all. Don't make me do anything to my factory. Are you willing to do things to your factory?
No.
Don't say that. Sure you are, as soon as you prove it, right? As soon as we prove the water's hot, then we'll do something. But I haven't proved it, have I? Because that p-value is really high, right? Many orders of magnitude higher than this. Okay, high. Okay, Lydia, you're a fish. Or an environmental wacko. Do you agree with the first thing he just said? She just said, sorry? Yes? Well, what about the second? Right, what do you think about 3%? Is that high or low?
I don't care.
Lydia, is that high or low? Lydia, is that high or low?
That's too hot. That's too hot.
So now we're a fish. Now we're willing to reject the null hypothesis more. Right? This 3% from that perspective is what? Is too low. It's very low. If we assume the water's okay, we would almost never see results like this. That probability is really low. What should we do?